Good morning and welcome to the Saturday Morning Sports Show here on 97.3 WRUL, 93.3 WROI AM 1460, and online worldwide at WRUL.com. Cole Carter, Chris Myers with you, Jovi Wagner and J.C. Tinsley across the hallway getting us on the air. A lot to recap today, including a thrilling win for the Carmi-White County Bulldog football team last night over Hamilton County, 52-29, the final score. And if you turn the game off in the third quarter and you turn us on this morning, you probably wouldn't have believed that the final score was 52-29, especially in favor of Carmi. But Chris, what an up and down ball game. Carmi was down in the third quarter with about 7 minutes left, I believe, in the third quarter, 29-16. It was looking pretty bleak, and all of a sudden, a couple of big plays defensively here and there, and all of a sudden, Carmi scores, 32 unanswered points to end the ball game.
You know, we had talked about how Wake Cal Preps, local game predictor, had predicted this to be a 1-point win in favor of the Foxes, and until the third quarter, it was about that. It was a 1-point battle at halftime. And you're right, Cole. It was about 7 minutes left in the third quarter with us down 2 scores and Hamilton County having the ball. It just seemed like all was about to be lost. Just anything that can go wrong was going wrong. The Bulldogs were just shooting themselves in the foot with just fumbled snaps, jumping off sides, personal foul penalties. You name it, we were doing it. Just so uncharacteristic. And you had that sinking feelings like if something doesn't change quickly, this is not going to end well. And something changed, and it changed quickly. That defensive stand there in the third quarter when we finally got them off the field, and I believe, as we recap, we'll know their running back Braxton Miller had a big night, and running that counter. He busted that play so many times on the Bulldogs, and once we finally stopped that play, it just seems like we turned around, and the drive that got us back in the game, we were 3rd and 15, and we were about on the 30-yard line of the Foxes. I mean, a 3rd and 15, and then a 4th and 5. Converted both of those, got back in the end zone, got back within a score. We never looked back.
Well, the scoring started early. Carmi went 3 and out on their first drive of the game. They had a chance to score. A little wheel route from Kate Allen. Madden Anderson threw it about maybe 3 inches too far out of the reach of Allen, so the Bulldogs were forced to punt. And then 3 plays later, Hamilton County scores on an 81-yard run by Braxton Miller. They go up 7-0 with 8:57 to play in the opening quarter. And then about 12 seconds later, Carmi answers as Noah Pollard returns the ensuing kickoff 85 yards to the end zone, and then Cade Stockton ran the 2-point play. Carmi led 8-7 at the end of the first quarter, and that was we thought it felt a lot like last week's game against Flora. Both teams trade punches early, and then the defenses started to settle in. That was the only score we had until the 94-second mark in the second quarter. Pollard broke one for a 40-yard touchdown run. He also ran the 2-point play. Bulldogs led there 16-7. There was about 80 seconds left to play. In the half, we were thinking, okay, let's go in the locker room up by 9, feeling pretty good. And then the kickoff, a little squibbler up the middle. Braxton Miller picks it up and takes it back 76 yards. They get the 2. So even at that point right there, it's a 16-15 game going into the locker room, Chris, and you just felt that Hamilton County was starting to get momentum.
Yeah, at 16-7, there for a second, we had controlled a lot of the second quarter. As you said, we settled in defensively. Pollard breaks that 40-yard run. We're thinking, okay, it's now a 2-score game. We may be able to just start to take control of it. But by no means was anything over, but you had a sense, okay, we've settled in. We can kind of get our clamps down and get control of this game. And then just like that, just a special teams play. Same thing that happened for us in the first quarter. Miller breaks that big run, kind of knocks the breath out of us. Pollard runs a touchdown back on the kickoff. We're up 16-7, getting ready to go into half, thinking, okay, let's get them off field, get to halftime, going with some momentum, and boom. Their best player gets the ball, touchdown on a kickoff return. And next thing you know, it's a 1-point game, as was predicted it would be. And you're thinking, okay, this is a fight. And it was just, you had the feeling it was going to be much like week 1. You may have had the sense, okay, whoever's going to have the last possession is going to have a chance to win this game, because it looked like we were just going to trade blows the whole game. But, had we gone up 16-7 into halftime, I really think it may have been a little different for your team's psyche, going in and just preparing for the second half.
Well, regardless of the score, the Bulldogs had to find some sort of way to stop Braxton Miller, and that didn't happen. In the third quarter, it only took them 54 seconds to score in the third quarter. Hamilton County, that is, a 58-yard run by Miller. They also got the 2-point play, and then on their next drive, little dump pass from their quarterback, Andrew Webb, to Miller. He caught it, made about 3 Bulldogs miss for a 57-yard catch and run, and just like that, Hamilton County was up 29-16, and they're at the 8:49 mark in the third quarter. You're thinking, okay, still lots of football left, but let's drive down and get a score. Well, the Bulldogs do drive down. That was the long run where Hamilton County had 12 men on the field. Pollard takes it up in about the 25-yard line, but a couple of false starts against the Bulldogs, maybe even a hold, I think, was in there. Carmi was facing 4th and 25. They don't have a play for 4th and 25. No. They run it, so they turn it over on down. So really, it was about the 4-minute mark in the third quarter. The penalties were starting to stack up against the Bulldogs. Hamilton County had a 13-point lead, and it just kind of felt like, man, this might get out of reach in a hurry.
Yeah, it just felt like the wheels were just slowly crumbling off the bus there for a second. But if you look at the time between Hamilton County's two scores, at 11:06, I mean, just less than a minute, you get hit in the mouth, and then 2 minutes later they score again. So I mean, they punched us twice really hard that quick, and it just seems like, okay, we had the breath knocked out of us. And you're right, Cole. When we did get the ball back on offense, it was just, there were a couple series there where it was just turning ugly. Yep. I mean, we couldn't get snaps, jumping off sides, holding, you name it, we were doing it. Just uncharacteristic things of, a Kurt Simon coached football team, and it was just like, what is happening? It was just like bizarro world. But as we pointed out, it took a defensive stop, which finally happened there. They're late in the third quarter, and once we got that defensive stop, and it was a spark from a young man who's a backup.
Yep.
Layden Vargas came in and made 2 big stops behind the line of scrimmage. We finally stopped them on a third down. If I recall, they were looking for Miller again on that counter. We managed to stop it, forced them to punt, and things just absolutely changed from that point.
So the Bulldogs were able to find the end zone with 1:23 left to play. In the third quarter, a 2-yard run by Cade Stockton. Pollard ran the 2-point play, and the Bulldogs were back within 6 at, I got to do some math here where the score was at that point. That made it 29-24. Yeah, 29-24 with 1:23 left to go in the third quarter. And then the Bulldogs with a little short squib kick. Hamilton County can't field it well, and the Carmi is able to recover it, and they go march down about a minute later, and Pollard takes it in from 22 yards out. And all of a sudden, Carmi was up 30-29 going into the fourth quarter. I mean, that 90-second spurt right there with the 2 touchdowns, the kick recovery, put the Bulldogs in front.
Yeah, and it was the drive where we scored, I believe, with 1:23 left in the third, where 2 times we were in pretty crunch time situations. A 3rd and 15, we get about 10 yards out of that with Pollard, and then he converted a 4th and 5. The line just finally did a great job. Hamilton County had been run blitzing that whole game. And they were just sending linebackers through the A gaps, and what that is, that's between the guards and the centers. And we were just having a real difficult time picking that up. They were trying to time it, time our snap, and we were just having a difficult time. But we finally started picking that up, and once we did, that made all the difference. But to me, when that 4th and 5 conversion is what really kind of turned this game around. But yeah, for us to get 2 scores like that, and the squib kick recovery, we were talking up in the booth, I don't think that was intentional. Mm-hmm. I think Pollard was trying to just kind of pooch it a little bit, but he caught the top of the football just enough that we ended up getting that thing. We may ask the coaches when to get to work Monday, but, to me it didn't look intentional, but we'll take it. It was huge either way.
And then it was all Carmi in the fourth quarter. Pollard, a 3-yard touchdown run. He also ran in the 2-point play. Noah broke off a 62-yard touchdown run. Stockton ran in the 2-point play, and then Cade Stockton capped it off with a 75-yard touchdown run with just a minute and 43 seconds on the clock. And then freshman Dakota Brown with the game-sealing interception to put the nail in the coffin on what was really a thrilling win for the Bulldogs last night. So now the moment everybody's been waiting for, what were these stats from the Bulldog rushers last night? Noah Pollard, 32 carries, 298 yards, 5 total touchdowns 4 of those on the ground. 1 was the kickoff return. So Noah 2 yards shy of the 300-yard mark. That is best for third all-time in a single game in CWCHS history. Cade Stockton, 12 carries for 127 yards. I believe that's his first 100-yard game at the varsity level. Jazz Duckworth, 1 carry for -3 yards. Madden Anderson, -2 yards on the ground. And Cale Wiggins, -3. For Hamilton County, Braxton Miller, he had 9 carries for only 215 yards.
That's it.
And you got to consider he had 2 60-plus yard runs called back because of penalties. So if they don't commit penalties on a couple of big plays, they might win the game, and he also probably rushes for over 300 yards at least. But 9 carries, 215 yards. He had all of their touchdowns, so that would 4 touchdowns for Miller last night. Kyle Williams, 13 carries for 21 yards. In the passing department, Madden Anderson was 2 for 5 for 23 yards, 1 catch for Cade Allen for 19 yards. David Hagan had 1 catch for 4 yards. Braxton Miller, 2 catches, 68 yards, and a score. Cameron Milligan with 3 catches for 38 yards. Andrew Webb for the Foxes, 5 for 15, 106 yards, and 1 touchdown with 2 picks. The turnover margin I thought was pretty important. Carmi +2 in the turnover battle with a 2 turnover on downs as well. We mentioned the 2 interceptions, a big one from freshman Dakota Brown there at the end. And Cade Allen also had a nice pick where he kind of faded back, read the football, picked it off, and had a good return that set up one of those touchdown drives for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, and we had even said at halftime, something that may need to happen to change this game is the defense needs to create a turnover. And sure enough, 2 big interceptions at critical times definitely played a huge role in that game. Allen's pick, field position changed a lot. But, Dakota Brown, we watched that interception, to basically seal the game. That play more or less sealed the deal. But the way, and I've said this before, this young man a year ago was playing junior pro football. And now he's a freshman. You're asking him in crunch time to cover good, team's best receivers. And the way he covered, the way he turned his hips, the way he played the ball, got his head back at the last minute, jumps up, just catches that thing, makes the diamond pattern with his hands. Snags
with a guy who's got about 8 inches on him.
Absolutely. Yep. That kid was 6'3", 6'4" that he was covering. I mean, it was just, you couldn't ask an NFL corner or safety to do that any better. So, those 2, creating those 2 turnovers were massive. And that's something we knew we were going to have to do to get a spark to our offense. And it just, again, from the 8-7 minute mark in the third quarter on, Carmi just absolutely flipped a switch and just became the football team we knew they can.
Tackles last night for the Bulldogs. Cade Stockton had 7 total. Cale Wiggins with 7. Noah Pollard and Stone McGee, 5 each. Layden Vargas with 4. Josiah Perez had 3. Michael Miller, Javen Hagan, Easton Sullivan, and Eli Bryant all with 2. And Jazz Duckworth and Dakota Brown with 1 apiece. So, and a huge thank you to our stat guy, Toby Brown, and his crew last night, doing a great job as always. And Toby dug deep in the history books last night. We mentioned Noah and his 298 rushing yards. That is 3rd all-time in a single game behind
Logan
Rogers, I believe he's 1 and 2.
Yeah.
He ran for 328 against Vienna in 2010, and then 349 against Trico back in 2009. 36 points last night scored by Noah Pollard. That is the 3rd most ever in a game, behind Isaac King, who had 40 in 2021. Cameron Gunner had 37 in 2012. Pollard's 5 touchdowns in a game ties him for first all-time. There's multiple that have tied that 5-touchdown mark. The Bulldogs scored 22 points in the 4th quarter. That is the 2nd most points a Bulldog team has ever scored in the 4th quarter, behind the 2021 Bulldogs, who scored 26 in the 4th quarter at Flora. Carmi's 36 points in the second half is the 2nd most ever scored by the Bulldogs in the second half. Also in that 2021 Flora game where they scored 55 points in the second half. I'm not sure if that record will be broken anytime soon.
I don't think it will be.
55 points in the second half. That's pretty impressive. Yeah. But Kurt Simon was pretty happy after the Bulldogs came back to defeat Hamilton County last night. Here is what he had to say.
Coach, they're in the 3rd quarter. They had everything going for them. And just the way you guys were able to will yourselves in the second half and put up 30-some-odd unanswered points.
It's something that we talk about all the time. It seems like I sound like a broken record a lot of times, how there's really highs in a game and really lows in a game, and you got to stay right here all the time. I mean, really, the last 2 weeks we've showed that because we got down last week as well. And then, of course, it helps when you got Noah Pollard and Cade Stockton and some guys up front learning how to, get into people. But I got to give them credit. I mean, early in the game, man, they were getting after us. We couldn't block them. But again, that's going to happen. But we do what we do. We don't have a prolific offense where we're going to come out and spread and all of a sudden change the whole. We have to do what we do, and we just stuck with it. Kept believing in each other, and all the credit in the world for the kids.
Yeah, I think before I get to the big summary of the game, I think from the technical standpoint, it took a little while, but once your offensive line, because they were run blitzing constantly, which you knew they were going to do. Their defense,
two really good
yes,
linebackers there.
Very good players that
Yes.
were just A-gap. Once your line kind of settled down and adjusted to that run blitz, started picking that up a little bit, I thought your offense began to click, definitely. So can you talk about how you thought your offensive line made an adjustment there late in the game?
It's just, I mean, like I said, early in the game, and they have a lot of guys up on the line of scrimmage. They even brought their corners up. And so early in the game, we threw that one pass where we just barely overthrew Cade Allen.
Wheel route.
Just something that, we don't have a whole lot of those in the arsenal, but when you do bring that many up, you do it. But I think it's just a matter of, the will of our kids. And I've always talked about being, we do that down on Tuesday and Wednesday down the street. Yeah. And try to work them as hard as we can at the beginning of practice, and then practice for the next half or hour and a half when they're tired, so they're used to something like this. Right. But then it does take senior leadership and guys that are just willing to sacrifice for one another. I thought the offensive line did a nice job. We did, early in the game, we're missing people, just crossing our face, and you guys both played offensively. Just don't let them cross the inside gap. And they were getting there anyway. Now, like I said, I will give credit to 88 because he can squeeze through there and he makes plays. But like I said, eventually we caught up with it.
Obviously, great nights from Noah and Cade and your senior leaders, but I thought there were some young guys tonight that made some tremendous plays, man. They're in that possession after you guys turn it over when you're down 2 scores. Leighton Vargas makes 2 big tackles for loss. You get the interception by Dakota Brown, Josiah Perez, some big plays in the defensive line.
And Dakota knocked one down earlier.
But just talk about the young guys stepping up and making some big plays.
No question. And that's just a matter of playing hard. And they play, that's, those 2 kids that you talked about. I mean, I think Vargas has come a long way in the last 2 weeks and has really done a good job on the defensive line. And I know in practice seems like there's always a bubble in the line when he's on scout team or whatever. So he's earning his spot, Yeah. And then Dakota Brown, just a great effort kid. He's going to be a great player here because he plays so hard, and you kind of talk to kids about playing angry, so to speak, or whatever. That's kind of how he is. He knows one speed. I've watched him in the weight room all summer. I've watched him at practice. I've watched him in a couple games. He has one speed. And that, when he matures a little bit more, there's been a lot of players like that in the past that are kids like that, and they just get so much better because they're just so used to going hard all the time. But you're right, a lot of younger kids, and we do have a lot of younger kids and a lot of inexperienced kids out there not played in a varsity football game before, so they're week in and week out, and now we got to get better because now we get into the good, the good Sesser. We got a bye week this next week, so to speak, and then we got Sesser, and then we got Fairfield, so we got some good opponents coming up, so we got to get back.
Off what Cole said, when Josiah Perez and Leighton Vargas have been in there, and Dakota Brown. I mean, they're not just taking space; they're in there making plays. Perez last week did a nice job this week.
Yep.
Vargas, but what I want to go to is just from the standpoint of it's roughly 7 minutes to go in the third quarter. You're down 2 scores. We're an offense. Let's just be honest. We're not going to spread the field and wing it and come back in 3-4 plays with home runs. We're all thinking, wow. This is a wall we're against. When your team, what did you tell your team at that moment when you were at that point? What did you say?
Stay
to
the
them?
course.
Yeah,
that's all you can say. I don't have any magic words for them out there, but we talk to them about it day in and day out in practice. That you're going to be in situations that don't look good whatsoever, but you have to keep playing as hard as you've ever played and keep believing in one another. That's basically what it comes down to. And then, of course, you got players.
Yeah.
I don't know what Noah rushed for tonight. But,
A lot.
He's a heck of a player.
Yeah.
And you know, my hats are off to him. And he'll be the first one to say it's all about the guys up front and all that, because he's an unselfish kid and I love him for it. But he's a good player, and he can break tackles, and when he gets in the open, he can score.
Yeah.
And then we got your other, you know, Cade Stockton was the same way. And those are two senior guys, you know, two seniors. And this season means a heck of a lot to seniors. And, you know, that's how we got to do it. You know, we get down 2 scores. I don't have my play sheet this year is that big. Okay, it's normally a sheet about that big with both sides covered. And that's not the type of team we are this year. We got to get it done how we can get it done. And
that's what made it even more incredible, you know, because Pollard, 3rd and 15, you're, you know, on that one drive when you're behind, he gets you 10 yards, 4th and 5, and it was touchdown, next play, touchdown. I mean, that's the kind of thing, you know. And I was just going to say my last thing. In 28 years of watching you do this, I rank that as one of the best wins
That was my
I've
question.
seen.
I was going to ask where it ranked on your.
It's in your top 5. I rank it up there.
That's a lot of years. I wouldn't. It's really gratifying as a coach when you do things like that. You know, it's always a lot of fun when you win in the last second play and all that kind of stuff. That's the epitome of winning games. But this type of game where you're down, I mean, it does not look good, and you hang in there and come back. Those are great ones as well. It was a good one for our kids, good one for our young kids, inexperienced kids, all the freshmen watching. We want them to learn something about it. You just got to, like I said, you just got to keep playing hard all the time.
So you guys don't play next week. It's a unique situation, and you get the bye week, but you're at Cesar the week after. Kind of how do you approach this week going into the next?
I just told them, you know, it'd be very easy this next week. We got the JV game on Monday. Then you're down the street on Tuesday and Wednesday like we normally are. You go down there and coast, knowing you don't have a game on Friday. Or we can go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and shore up things that we're not doing right. We'll watch the film tomorrow morning and get better. These kids will do it. These kids will do it. They will respond. They always have. So that's the biggest thing, is to not take a week off. You don't have to play on Friday, but like we always say, you don't get, you know, we either get better or we get worse every day, and we got to get better every day because we still got a lot of work to do.
Well, Coach, congrats on a great win. Enjoy the rest next week with no game, and we'll talk to you at Cesar in a couple weeks.
All right, thanks, guys.
Congrats,
Thanks,
Coach.
Yep.
That was Kurt Simon last night after the Bulldogs defeated Hamilton County 52-29. To be clear, me and Chris are not saying that last night was the greatest win in Coach Simon's coaching career. We were just saying in terms of a game where you were down big, things weren't looking good, to be able to come back. I mean, that's a top 5 game in my broadcasting career, just watching a team that just was dead to rights and was able to come back and make the score look a lot different than what the game really was.
Yeah, I mean, you know, of course not. I mean, you know, I guess we're internally caught a little jousting from some folks for that, but that's the point, Cole. From the standpoint of where we were in that game, I said last night, we barely had a pulse left. I mean, if another break had gone Hamilton County's way, we're down 3 scores, and then do you come back? I don't know. So, I mean, from the standpoint of just literally being hanging by a thread and then coming back and doing what we did, that was definitely one of the best wins of his career.
Again, the Bulldogs win it by a final of 52-29. Looking at some other scores in the Black Diamond, and I've just looked at this score for the first time, and it's surprising to me. Mm-hmm. Flora defeats CZR 27-24.
CZR. Wow.
Yeah, and obviously Carmi saw Flora last Friday and thought pretty likely of Flora after that game that Carmi won, but Johnson City put 60 points on CZR. We thought CZR might be down. Maybe CZR can battle, so we'll see how that goes later on in the season. Yeah. Johnson City shuts out Edwards County 56-0. JC over Edwards County 56-0. Fairfield over El Dorado 28-20. That game a little closer than I expected. You know, Fairfield lost a lot from graduation. But El Dorado, obviously, they've had a rough couple of years, but that score a little surprising as well. Some other non-conference games from around Southern Illinois: Murfreesboro over Anna Jonesboro, 59-7. Carterville over Nashville, 20-16. DuQuoin over Harrisburg, 28-14. West Frankfort over Heron, 34-12. Chesterville over Pinckneyville, 56-6. Benton over Salem, 56-0. Breese Central over Breese Mater Dei, 49-13. And scrolling down, let's see, Effingham over Mount Carmel, 26-22. Olney over Mattoon, 24-22. Charleston defeats Paris, 28-18. Shelbyville over Marshall, 54-8. Taylorville over Robinson, 34-0. And I think that's all about the relative scores from last night. Red Hill and Lawrenceville do play later on this afternoon. So, busy week, an exciting week in high school football last night in Southern Illinois. And again, a big win for the Bulldogs, 52-29 over Hamilton County. And they will not be playing next week with the Vienna-Goreville cancellation. So the Bulldogs will have a chance to rest up. But like Coach said, Chris, you can't jog down College Boulevard last night and do things at half speed. And from watching the film from last night, still a lot of things they can improve on.
There are a lot of things they got to correct. Looking at it, we had 50 yards in penalties, and for Kurt Simon, that's not an acceptable number. The jumping off sides, there were a lot of miscues offensively, defensively, some things. Some breaks we caught. So there is always, no matter who you are, what you do, there are always things you can improve on. And I think the important thing this week, and I know the coaches will do a good job of keeping these kids focused, is you can look at it as you have an extra week to prepare for a very good football team. Going to Cesar to play at Cesar is by far from an easy task. I don't think this game against Cesar is going to be any easier, because they also defeated Hamilton County as well and held them to one score. So that tells you defensively, Cesar's going to be a solid ball club, and I expect them to be better defensively than Hamilton County was for sure. So, I think the kids just got to be laser focused this week, even though you're not playing Friday night. Take advantage of these extra days to prepare, because it could really benefit you going into a very tough upcoming couple of games that are coming up, Cesar and then followed by Fairfield.
We'll take our first break of the morning. We come back, we will take a look at what the other athletic teams did at CWC this past week, and we'll look ahead to next week's action right here on the Saturday Morning Sports Show on 97.3 WRUL, 93.3 WROY AM 1460, and online worldwide at WRUL.com. All right, back here on the Saturday Morning Sports Show on 97.3 WRUL, 93.3 WROY AM 1460, and online worldwide at WRUL.com. Cole Carter, Chris Myers with you. J.C. Tinsley and Jovial Wagner across the hall getting us on the air, as we just got done recapping the Bulldogs' 52-29 win over Hamilton County last night. They improved to 2-0, as we'll take a look back at some of the action that took place this past week for Carmi-White County Athletics. Back on Monday, the boys and girls golf teams hosted Waltonville and NCOE, and the Lady Bulldogs, they finished in first place with a team score of 214. The Bulldogs were just short with a team score of 163. And also on Tuesday, the girls tennis team, they played their first match of the season, and they defeated Mount Carmel 6-3. First win for new head coach Robin Winter, so congratulations to her. Then on Wednesday, the boys and girls golf team hosted El Dorado, and both of them came away victorious. Boys shot a team score of 159. Girls were 202. Maxine O'Daniel, Ava Sheaver, and Courtney Snow were all medalists in Wednesday's matches. Let's see, the junior high baseball and softball teams also hosted Albion. The Bullpups won that one 17-7. Lady Bullpups fell 13-8. And then also on Tuesday, on Thursday, the Lady Bulldog volleyball team defeated Gallatin County in 2 sets, 25-7 and 25-11, to improve their record to 8-0 on the season. We'll get back to them in a second. The girls tennis team fell to Mount Vernon 8-1. Callie Acord, the lone winner for the Lady Bulldogs. And then junior high baseball and softball hosted Benton. The Lady Bullpups won 8-3, and the Bullpups fell 9-0. And hopefully that was able to catch all the action for all the other sporting teams this week. But the volleyball team, they only played one this week. They hosted Gallatin County and defeated them, as I mentioned, in 2 sets, 25-7, 25-11. If you have not had the chance to go watch this team play, they are something to watch. Last Saturday, they went 5-0, defeating a couple of really good teams at the Fairfield Kickoff Tournament. They're now 8-0 on the season. Beat a really good North City team last Saturday. Beat a really good North Posey team last Saturday. Chris, I know you've had a chance to watch this team a little bit so far this fall, but man, they are something.
Well, you just think about a tournament like that. Those girls are starting out, about 9 o'clock in the morning playing a game? You have 5 games in one day. You just think about just how physically exhausted you have to be by that point. But to finish the day playing another team in the area that many consider to be, a top program, and then playing a North Posey team, we may not know much about as far as the team itself, but, watching the news the past couple, 3 years, they had a group of girls who were, they won a state tournament in softball, so they've had a pretty solid run in girls athletics. So, to win 2 games like that back to back to finish an already just long, exhausting day, that was absolutely amazing and impressive.
So here is what Chris Lucas had to say after the Lady Bulldogs took down Gallatin County on Tuesday.
Chris, nice opportunity to ease back into things. You had a pretty busy weekend from what I heard and saw, and to come in and get a good non-conference win out of the way, get the girls' legs back underneath them, was a good win.
Yeah, it was. We had an exciting weekend at Fairfield where, we played really good teams and our girls played really well, and but you got to let that go and you got to move on. And so we know Gallatin County's in a rebuilding process, and so I was able to play a bunch of kids today in different spots, and I told them in the huddle, I said, it's kind of like an audition when you go out there, because they're in a long season like this, there are going to be times where we're going to have a girl sick or someone's going to get hurt and not be able to play, but I think you saw we've got girls that are capable of coming in when we need them to.
And that was one thing Cole pointed out, and I gave him full credit for doing it, especially on those long days when you had to play 5-6 matches in one day. Depth is just a lovable luxury to have in that position, and you definitely have some depth in pretty much every spot.
Yeah, we do, and I was just telling the girls they're off tomorrow, and then we practice Monday. We play Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and 5 Saturday. And so, talking about that depth, we're going to need it. And luckily it's going to cool down a little bit next week, but, we've got Flora coming in here Tuesday. Then we have, the North City tournament, and that's going to be exciting, I'm sure. and then we've got, Benton tournament where we've got Salem in our bracket, Woodlawn in our bracket again. And so Massac County's in a crossover pool with us. And so it's going to be tough. And so, every night, though, we're going to have to come ready to play. Teams we've talked about before, going to gear up for us, but it's really nice to have a bunch of kids you can play whenever kids need a break.
Well, no, I won't keep you long because I know you got things to do. You get back into the conference on Tuesday. Flora comes calling. What can you tell us about Flora?
They're getting better. They've got a really good coach, and I saw him Saturday. He was reffing at the tournament, and I just complimented him on how he's got his kids ready to go. And so they were a pretty good program about 6-7 years ago, and they just ran through a dry spell there for a while. But he's got them on the way back up. They're really young, and but he has them playing hard. And so, we can't take anything for granted. It's a conference game. Our number one priority is to win the conference, and so they'll be scrappy and ready to go, and our girls better be ready to go too.
Last question, how do you feel about your Steelers this year?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I saw Russell Wilson's got a calf injury again today. I saw that on the injury report. So, I don't know. The schedule is brutal about the last 8 games of the year, and so, if Mike Tomlin can pull off a greater than 500 season this year, he may be the best coach of all time. But, I get frustrated with them, every single season because I think they should win the Super Bowl every year. But it's time to move up. Instead of just being 500 or over 500, we need to start winning playoff games this year. So we'll see. Got a good defense. So
fair assessment.
Yeah.
Appreciate the time, Chris.
All right. Thank you, guys.
We don't want to get Coach Lucas too fired up when it comes to talking about the Steelers, but we could talk about them all day, but nobody wants to listen to that. But looking ahead at the Carmi-White County athletic schedule for this upcoming week, on Monday, the JV football team, they're going to host Hamilton County. And then on Tuesday, as Chris mentioned, the Lady Bulldog volleyball team, they will host Flora. Boys golf will also host Flora. And then junior high baseball and softball travel to El Dorado. Then on Wednesday, girls tennis, they are at Carbondale. Junior high baseball is at Gallatin County. Girls golf is at Marion, and volleyball will take part in the NCOE tournament both on Wednesday and Thursday. Also on Thursday, the boys golf team is at West Frankfort, and girls tennis is at Fairfield. Nothing going on next Friday, as weird as that is. And then Saturday is pretty eventful for the Bulldogs next week. Boys golf is at the Benton Invite. The Lady Bulldog volleyball team is at the Benton tournament. Tennis is at Heron, and then junior pro football is at Johnson City. So we talked about them having to play, the volleyball team having to play 5 matches last Saturday. They're going to play about 5 in 2 days, well, really about 6 in 3 days between Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and coming back and playing probably 5 more on Saturday in that Benton tournament. So you're playing a lot of matches, but a chance to beat some really competitive teams in the area.
Yeah, and both those tournaments are going to be very solid. You know, if they win that one, and especially if they win that Benton tournament, you know, they're already, you know, I think it's safe to say one of the top programs in Southern Illinois. And if they go and, you know, dominate those tournaments, there's going to be no question where they stand really in the state in their class. I believe we're 2A volleyball,
Yep.
Is that correct? Yep. So one of the top programs in 2A.
So again, Lady Bulldogs, they'll be at home on Tuesday against Flora. We'll have that one for you on the WRUL Sports YouTube channel. We'll take our second break of the morning and our final break for us here on the show. And when we come back, we'll have our Terrible 10 Pick'em and wrap things up right here on the Saturday Morning Sports Show on 97.3 WRUL, 93.3 WROI, and AM 1460. Welcome back to the Saturday Morning Sports Show here on 97.3 WRUL, 93.3 WROI, AM 1460, and online worldwide at WRUL.com. Well, if you want to get out and enjoy the beautiful weather today and watch some football up at Harrington Jeffrey Sports Complex, the Junior Pro Bulldogs kick off here in about 45 minutes as they're playing Hamilton County today. The 5th and 6th grade game starts at 10:30 with the 7th and 8th grade game to follow. So get outside, enjoy that nice weather today. Chris, you said you're mowing the yard today.
I'm
it's a good
mowing
day. It's a good day for it.
Yes,
good day
I'm
for
enjoying these next 2 days as far as the weather.
Well, there's also if you want to sit inside and watch college football, I don't blame you because I might be doing that this evening. So 5 college football games, 5 NFL games to predict for this week. I surprisingly went 8-2 last week. Chris went 4-5. Picking those spreads were a little bit rough on Chris, but week 1 college football, you never really know when you get these paid games. But I'll take the 8 wins for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure you will.
All right, so we'll start with our 5 college games. The first one, probably the most entertaining matchup of the day. Number 3, Texas travels to Ann Arbor to face the defending national champions, the number 10 Michigan Wolverines. Kevin Wolf will probably not leave his garage for a few hours today. Big Michigan guy. Chris, who do you got?
I'm going to have to go with the Longhorns.
Okay.
I think, you know, Jim Harbaugh alone leaving, and I believe their head coach had to miss a game last week. You know, just a lot of talent gone, graduated. You know, I'm not saying Michigan's going to be bad, but I don't think they're enough for Texas at this point.
Yeah, I'm have to agree with you there. Texas, They did look pretty good in their week 1 win last week. Michigan had a little bit of a hiccup against Fresno State, and they're returning. I think Kevin told me 9 starters offensively from, or at least total from guys going to the NFL. So it's going to take them a couple of weeks to really look like the same team they did last week, or last year. I'm going with Texas. Interesting game a couple hours north of us. Number 19 Kansas travels to Champaign to face the Fighting Illini. Illinois, a big win over Eastern Illinois in their week 1 matchup. But this could be a ball game. I think Kansas is a 4.5-point favorite. Let's see. I'm going to have to go with Kansas on the road. My heart wants to say ILL, but my brain is saying take the Jayhawks.
I'm kind of with you there, Cole. That's a game that's going to go either way. You know, Kansas, to their credit, the last couple of years, qualified for a bowl. Kansas was a program
They've
that
turned
was
their
just
program
an
around.
absolute doormat. You know, they were a 1, maybe 2 win team for a lot of years, and so they've really become a top 25 team. That program's really turned around. So I'm going to say Kansas does just enough to win. They don't blow them out by any means. It's a close game, but I'll give Kansas the slight edge.
Interesting SEC at ACC game. Number 14, Tennessee travels to face number 24, NC State. Who do you got here, Chris?
I'm going to go with Volunteers. I know they did just play Chattanooga, which you can't judge a lot by that, but dropping 69 points on anybody is impressive. NC State really struggled in their first game to pull out a win, so I'm going to go with the Volunteers.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm going Tennessee here as well. All right, the Pitt Panthers, they travel to Cincinnati to face the Bearcats. Anytime there is a Pittsburgh team playing Cincinnati, I don't care if it's football, bowling, underwater basket weaving, I am going with Pittsburgh. Sorry, Matt Gilpin. Give me the Panthers.
I'll have to do the same, Cole. I'll go with you on this Pittsburgh level. Not the NFL Pittsburgh, but I'll go with you on the
fair.
college. Yeah.
The Cy-Hawk Trophy being battled for today in Iowa. Iowa State travels to face number 21 Iowa Hawkeyes. It is. Let's see. What cities? Is it Iowa City, and then Ames is where
I believe,
these two
yeah.
schools are. So Iowa is in Iowa City. That's where the game is today. I'm going with Iowa State to win this game. Iowa State, they are my sneaky, under the radar. They might find their way with a win today. Could find their way in the top 25. They got a good roster. I love using them on that new college football video game. So I'm going with the Cyclones here, Iowa State.
I'm going to have to go opposite on you this one. I'm going to have to go with the Hawkeyes at home. I think they've made, even though it was 40 points against Illinois State, for an Iowa team to score 40 points is
True.
a lot because they're usually averaging about 10 points a game. So I'll give them the edge at home.
All right, the NFL is back. It's week 1 and big slate of games going on tomorrow. I'm excited for it. But 5 interesting matchups to choose from today. First one, the Texans at the Colts. Chris, who do you got here?
I'm going to lean just a little bit towards the Colts on this one. I think they were solid last year, kind of faltered down the stretch, but I think I'll go ahead and give them the nod.
I'm torn here. This is going to be an interesting
Yeah.
one because it's two teams that I think have a lot of potential. It's just a matter if they are week 1 ready. But I'm going to go with the more talented roster. I'm just going to go with Houston. On the road, Indy is a really tough place to play. I will go with the Texans winning at Indianapolis tomorrow afternoon. The Jacksonville Jaguars travel down south to face the Miami Dolphins. Should be an interesting battle. I will take Miami at home here.
I'm going to go ahead and go the opposite way. I'm going to take the Jaguars.
Okay.
I think they're on the threshold of really becoming a solid playoff team. I know they made it last year, but I think possible AFC championship contender.
Okay. The Caleb Williams debut in Chicago as the Bears host the Tennessee Titans. I've seen a lot of picks for this game go back and forth, both teams with pretty much brand new rosters. It could be an entertaining ball game. Who do you got here, Chris?
I'm going to go ahead. We are still in Illinois, even though, Chicago. I'm going to go ahead and lean with the Bears on this one.
I'm thinking the Bears as well. I think it won't be an entertaining ball game, but what I've seen from Caleb Williams, that kid might be the real deal.
Yeah,
so
the Bears historically they've basically had one quarterback over. You ask diehard Bears fans, Jim McMahon in '85. That's really the
I thought
last
you were going
time.
to say Jay Cutler.
No, I'm going to say Jay Cutler. Jim McMahon. If you think quarterback, the Bears have just never been a franchise who've had that guy at quarterback. They've had people around a decent quarterback, but never just had that guy. So this may be the first time with Caleb Williams that they have that guy at quarterback.
All right, big NFC, AFC matchup in Cleveland as the Cowboys travel to face the Browns. This is interesting, and it's one of those games where two talented rosters. I think the Cowboys should win this game, but I feel like they're going to lose this game. I just feel like something's going to happen. The Cowboys Dak Prescott will throw a pick late in a game that they should win. I think Cleveland's going to win an ugly game in Cleveland.
Well, you know me, I'm always going to pick against Dallas, so I'm just saying the Browns. Even if Dallas is the better team, I'm saying Cleveland. I know Cowboys fans, I'm sorry. You can pelt me with eggs later.
Final game. This is, I believe, the Sunday night game tomorrow night. The L.A. Rams travel to Detroit to face the Lions. Who do you got here, Chris?
I'm going to take the Lions.
Okay.
I really like Dan Campbell. You know, he brings the attitude he has as a player to that team. You know, I really expect the Lions just to piggyback off what they did last season.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Detroit's got a pretty good roster, good wide receivers, good running backs, good defense, good O-line, and Dan Campbell's done a lot of good things there. I will go with Detroit as well to take down the Rams to cap off the first Sunday of NFL action, which I'm ready. Yeah, it's like I said, we finally made it. It's
We're
the
here.
best time of the year. You got NFL Thursdays, high school Fridays, college Saturdays, NFL Sunday and Monday. It's my wife's least favorite time of the year because she's always stuck watching football. But I enjoy it and I'm excited. But Chris, kind of recapping the entire show, a big win for the Dogs last night. Volleyball team continues their dominance, and again, we will not have a show next Saturday with no football game. We're going to take a week off, and we'll pick things back up on the 21st. But a lot to be excited right now if you're a Bulldog fan.
Yeah, a lot of positive things going on so far in the athletic year. You know, volleyball probably going to have a historic year. You know, those girls are just incredible, and the big win last night. Just hopefully we can build off that momentum. We realize what we're made of, as far as having to back against the wall and coming back and winning that game the way they did. Just need to take that same mentality down to Cesar a week from Friday because, that is, to say the least, that game's going to be tough.
So, again, the Bulldogs will be in action again on September 20th at Cesar, and we'll have that one for you. It's going to wrap things up for us this morning here in the studio. Big thanks to J.C. Tinsley and Joby Wagner across the hallway getting us on the air. For Chris Myers, I'm Cole Carter. Have a great weekend. Thank you for listening to the Saturday Morning Sports Show.